Okay, so your brain loses about 5.25% of its gray matter every single decade. That is not a guess. That is measured across 712 people ages 36 to 90, using one of the most detailed brain imaging datasets ever put together. But here is what that number does not tell you. It does not tell you that 5.25% is where you are headed no matter what. Because gray matter does not disappear just because you got older. It disappears in response to specific things, and those things are measurable, named, and mostly within your control. So this video is the 5 specific inputs that speed that loss up or slow it right down, and what the research actually shows happens when you change them. So to understand why this rate can actually move, you need to know what gray matter even is. It is mostly neuron cell bodies, dendrites, glial cells, and the connections between neurons. When researchers say gray matter volume is decreasing, what they mean is that density and complexity is going down. Connections get pruned from disuse. Branching gets reduced. Your brain runs on a strict energy budget, and it quietly pulls investment from tissue that is not being used or maintained enough. This is actually the same use it or lose it idea from earlier in this series, just showing up at the structural level instead of the functional one. So, gray matter loss is not purely about how many years you have been alive. It is about what your brain has actually been given to justify maintaining. Age sets the context. The inputs decide the rate inside that context. The Lifebrain consortium, a huge pooled analysis across European research cohorts, found 5 specific lifestyle factors that consistently show up alongside lower gray matter and lower hippocampal volume across the entire adult lifespan. Not just correlated with age, associated with volume, independent of age. And those 5 factors are exactly what this video walks through. And here is what makes this more urgent than just a checklist. The Lifebrain analysis found these 5 risk factors do not act alone. They compound each other. Physical inactivity plus short sleep produces a bigger reduction in gray matter than either one would predict on its own. Chronic stress plus heavy alcohol use accelerates hippocampal shrinkage past what either factor causes by itself. The hippocampus specifically is sensitive to cortisol exposure and to neuroinflammation, which means 2 people the exact same age can have measurably different gray matter volumes, based entirely on which combination of these 5 inputs they are carrying. These are not additive, they are multiplicative. So here are the 5 factors from the Lifebrain research and the actual mechanism behind each one. Input 1. Physical inactivity. Physical activity is linked to greater gray matter volume, especially in the medial temporal region, in people who are cognitively healthy. Sedentary time, basically any waking time spent sitting or lying still, is linked to lower total brain volume. The mechanism is the BDNF pathway we covered in the last video. Movement drives BDNF production, which supports neuron survival and synaptic density. Inactivity just removes that signal. And the gray matter consequence is real and measurable. Input 2. Poor sleep. Sleep efficiency is positively linked to hippocampal and entorhinal cortex volume, confirmed directly in a 2024 study. The mechanism is the glymphatic system, the brain's waste clearance process, which runs during slow-wave sleep. When sleep is chronically disrupted, that waste builds up, neuroinflammation increases, and the hippocampus, the structure most sensitive to that buildup, shows a measurable drop in volume over time. Input 3. Chronic stress and elevated cortisol. Robert Sapolsky at Stanford has spent decades documenting how extended cortisol exposure damages hippocampal neurons and reduces their complexity. The hippocampus has the highest concentration of cortisol receptors of anywhere in your brain. When cortisol stays chronically elevated, those receptors get activated at a level that becomes neurotoxic over time, physically shrinking gray matter in the single most memory-critical structure you have. Input 4. Alcohol. Heavy alcohol use is directly linked to lower total gray matter volume in the Lifebrain data. It works through several pathways at once. Direct toxicity to neurons, disrupted sleep architecture, disrupted BDNF production, increased neuroinflammation. Even just the sleep disruption alone alcohol-suppressing slow-wave sleep creates a downstream gray matter coursed through that same glymphatic pathway. Input 5. Excess weight and metabolic dysregulation. Being overweight is linked to lower total gray matter volume. The mechanism runs through insulin resistance, which impairs how efficiently your brain uses glucose, plus increased systemic inflammation that crosses the blood-brain barrier. Think back to a stretch of your life when your thinking genuinely felt sharpest. Maybe your late 20s, maybe your early 30s. When you could pick things up fast, your memory felt like it just worked. Your focus felt clean. That was not just youth. That was a period when your gray matter was being properly maintained because the inputs were right. Consistent movement, reasonably good sleep, lower chronic stress, not perfect, just enough. The gray matter you had then is not gone. The conditions that maintained it changed, and as this video is about to show you, those conditions can genuinely be rebuilt. Quick, honest inventory before we get to the 5 fixes. How many of these apply to you right now? 1. You exercise fewer than 3 times a week at moderate intensity or higher. 2. You consistently sleep under 7 hours, or your sleep quality is genuinely disrupted. 3. You carry a level of stress that feels like your baseline, not a temporary state. 4. You drink alcohol more than a few times a week. 5. You have been carrying excess weight for more than a year. Drop the number that apply in the comments, because that number tells you how much of your gray matter loss rate is sitting above the 5.25% baseline right now, and how much of it is recoverable. Here is the part of this story almost nobody has heard. In July 2025, a study tracked 25 crew members at the Antarctic Concordia Station, total isolation, for 12 months. Physical activity way down, sleep badly disrupted by constant light. Chronic psychological stress elevated the entire time. Basically all 3 of the worst inputs from the Lifebrain research happening at once. MRI scans before, during, and after showed exactly what you would expect. Gray matter dropped during the mission, in the temporal and parietal lobes, the hippocampus, other regions too. And the worse the sleep disruption, the more gray matter was lost. But here is what made this study extraordinary. After the crew went back to normal conditions, normal sleep, normal movement, normal stress, almost all of that gray matter loss reversed. Within 5 months back at baseline, gray matter in every region but one had returned to where it started. This might be the single most important finding in this whole video. Gray matter loss driven by rough inputs is not permanent. When the inputs change, the tissue actually responds. Your brain restores what it pulled back, once the conditions that justified pulling it back are gone. Okay, stop. Before we get into the 5-point protocol, one reframe. The goal here is not to optimize all 5 of these to perfection at the same time. That is not how the research works, and honestly, it is not how people work either. The goal is just to move each input in the right direction, because the Lifebrain data shows that reducing the number of adverse inputs reduces your gray matter loss rate, even if you have not addressed all 5. 1 input changed is 1 compounding factor removed. 2 changed removes 2. You do not need to fix everything at once, you just need to start moving the number. So, 5 inputs, 5 specific changes, roughly in order of impact. 1. Build the aerobic exercise foundation. 3 sessions a week, 40 minutes, moderate intensity. Same protocol from the BDNF video. The gray matter evidence just adds more weight to why this one matters so much. This is your single, highest leverage change. 2. Protect your slow-wave sleep. The 2 changes with the biggest impact on gray matter specifically are a 3-hour alcohol buffer before bed and a consistent sleep and wake window within 30 minutes, 7 days a week. 3. Bring down your chronic cortisol baseline. The completion signal and autonomy discharge habits from an earlier video directly lower evening cortisol. The amygdala rest window lowers your daily threat signal load. These were never just sleep tips. They are hippocampal preservation protocols. 4. Apply the 3-hour alcohol buffer and cut back frequency. Reducing how often you drink is the single most impactful change for this input. The 3-hour buffer just minimizes the sleep architecture damage on the nights you do drink. 5. Address insulin sensitivity through movement and food timing. This is the most complex input, so here is the simplest actionable version. Resistance training, 2 sessions a week, 20 to 30 minutes, improves insulin sensitivity, and eating within an 8 to 10 hour daily window improves insulin signaling without needing any specific diet. Here is the timeline that makes all of this concrete. The Antarctic crew recovered their gray matter within 5 months of getting back to normal conditions. The walking study from earlier in this series produced measurable hippocampal volume increases within a year. And the Lifebrain research found that every adverse input removed is linked to higher gray matter volume at any age. You are not racing a clock here. You are working with a system that responds to input at every single point you choose to change something. Gray matter does not disappear because you age. It withdraws when the conditions that justify keeping it are gone. Restore the conditions, and the brain restores the tissue. The Antarctic crew proved it takes 5 months, not 5 years, 5 months. This is the 5th video in this series, and it genuinely closes the loop the first one opened. Video 1 showed you what actually changes in your brain after 40. Video 2 showed you that neuroplasticity itself does not decline, only the conditions for it do. Video 3 gave you the BDNF exercise protocol. Video 4 gave you the 30-day training structure. And this one gives you the 5 specific inputs that determine how fast your gray matter is actually changing right now, plus the proof that changing them changes the rate. 5.25% a decade is the average. Your number is not the average. It is decided by 5 things that are genuinely in your hands. Save this video. Come back and run the 5 input check every 6 months. The number you are carrying is honestly the most honest single measure of where your risk stands right now. Share this with someone who thinks cognitive decline after 40 is just what happens with age. It is not. It is what happens when these specific inputs go unaddressed. That is a completely different story, with a completely different ending. If you are not here to stay average, subscribe.